Welcome back to another episode of Leaders of Today. I am so excited to share this conversation with you. Today, I'm joined by Naomi Andrick, an incredible entrepreneur, coach, and the founder of Thrive Meals, a healthy meal delivery service in Rawlinsford, New Hampshire. But Naomi's journey goes so much deeper than just food and fitness. Her story is one of resilience, survival, and transformation. By the time she was 14, Naomi was on her own, navigating a world that felt uncertain and at times unforgiving. She struggled with belonging, battled unhealthy habits, and took a winding path to find her place. But through it all, she built the tools, not just to survive, but to thrive. In our conversation, Naomi shares how those early struggles shaped the work she does today, how food, movement, and mindset come together to create lasting change, and why discovering your why is the most powerful step toward a healthier, more fulfilled life. She opens up about the power of vulnerability, the strength in self-acceptance, and the belief that we are never finished becoming who we can be. This conversation is raw, real, and filled with wisdom. I can't wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in. You're listening to Today's Leaders, from teens to titans. Hi, I'm Lorraine Connell, a teen leadership coach. I transitioned from teaching chemistry to coaching teens in leadership, helping them realize they can do hard things. We've often believed that leadership is an innate trait, but it's actually a skill that you build and improve. On this show, you'll meet today's leaders who share their teenage experiences, revealing how they developed confidence, direction, and the tools to become the leaders they are now. You'll discover how you or the teens in your life have the potential to become confident leaders, even if it doesn't seem possible. Welcome to the podcast, Naomi.
Hi, Lorraine. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. I want to start with you in having you go back to that teenager and share the journey, share the experiences that helped you get to who you are, the leader that we see in front of us now.
So interesting. I was thinking a lot about this before we did this today, and I feel as though my childhood got me to a certain point, and I was excelling in school. I was doing really well, and then at around probably 12, I took this turn, and I wasn't in a great home environment. But at 12, I took this turn, and that's when I started seeking outside coping mechanisms, I guess is the best way to put it. So I started hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things. I was in 3 separate high schools. At 13 for a year, I did not have a home. I had left my home. It was better to do that. And I did a lot of things, not because I wanted to, but honestly to survive. I dropped out of school in 9th grade. And I was getting bullied a lot. That was a lot of why I dropped out. And I didn't really have a loving home environment to support me continuing in that direction. So I sought refuge and connection through drugs and alcohol and all of the things that went along with if you're homeless. You hang out with the people and you do the things that are going to get you accepted by those people. And at almost 14, I found myself in a space where there was a lot of abuse, and I found myself in a space where I could not go back to my home, but I also had no other option. I had no place to live, and I couldn't be homeless anymore. And the weird thing is, as I'm saying this, it's so far. I think we have 2 books in our life, 2 stories. And for so many years, and I know I'm kind of skipping around, but for so many years, I lived in such a state of hiding that part of my life from people, because I felt it somehow took away from the person that I fought so hard to become now. And if they knew that piece of me, then I would no longer be worthy. If that makes sense. I'm like, if people know that, then it almost felt like that child inside of me that got bullied and dropped out of school and was homeless and didn't have any place to turn, that part of us stays with us. So that's who we always are. And I used to hate it. Now I love it because that's how I'm able to see in others that they need to be seen. That's how I'm able to understand, like, we're all that person. We're all that child that we once were that fought to be seen. So at 14, I had no option really, and I lived in Colorado. And my grandmother lived in New Hampshire, and I had only met her a couple times. And I basically had a choice at that time between going to a drug rehab or a home or coming out here to stay with my grandmother for the summer. And I came out here to stay with her for what was to be a summer. And she was in an adult community, but I ended up staying with her the whole summer. And then at the end, I went to school here. I got back into school and I was still doing some of the things. It was just a better home environment, but I was still doing all the coping mechanisms because I was still the same person. And I ended up dropping out of school again and got a full-time job, and I couldn't stay with her. So at that point, I got emancipated and got an apartment and worked full-time. And it wasn't a couple years. It was a couple years that I ended up going to school at night and getting my GED. It's so funny. I have a daughter now and she's 18. And that's how I'm able to see what we do to survive. Because when you're in the moment of doing it, you don't realize that, oh my God, I'm doing this. It's just what you're doing in order to stay alive. Because had I stayed where I was, it wouldn't have been a good outcome. So I wouldn't be the person I was today. So
yeah, and we talk about the path, right? The path when we're young seems like it should be straight, right? We should know where we are and where we're going, and how to get there should just be a straight path. But so often as we as adults reflect back on the path, it's never a straight line. And it's interesting to me, very much so, that the hiding that started probably very young for you continued as you became more successful in the world of, like other people or society, right? So you became what society would claim is successful as you develop these other businesses and your life, but you were still hiding, and you were hiding such an important part of your story. Just like when you were younger, you were hiding such an important part of who you were. And so, yeah, go for it. Tell me.
Here's where I'm going to cry. I had all of these beautiful people around me, and I had people that loved me so much and saw this person that they loved, but I felt like it was a facade because none of them knew who I believed myself to be. It's almost like a fake it till you make it thing. And I can honestly and genuinely say that lasted until probably 40 years old. And then there was just one day, which I'll get to, but there was just this one day where I woke up and I didn't wonder when I might eventually get there. And I felt beautiful, not on the outside, just I felt myself as beautiful. And I don't know how it happened. I think it was years of just fighting for it. But I remember one time, I'm a nutritionist, and for years, what I would do is I waitressed. I had 2 kids, so I was a single mom. I waitressed to support that, but then on the side, I had my nutrition business. That's what I felt I feel now so passionately about. And it's because of my own journey. I had lost 65 pounds, and weight has nothing to do with it.
Right.
But I remember, so I'm just going to say it like it was to me at that time, but I remember I was in a Levi's store in Kittery, and I went into the dressing room and I had to try on a pair of pants. And I had that crumple to the floor and start crying moment when a size 14 didn't fit me. And that had never been who I was. And it wasn't about the size. It wasn't about any of those things. It was about the fact that my coping mechanisms were no longer going to work. It was just a very eye-opening experience for me. And I then started fighting for myself. And at that point, it was to look a certain way. Okay, we're supposed to look a certain way or I'm not valuable. And which was instilled in me my whole life. If you look a certain way, then you have value. If you don't, then you are not worthy. And I think that was because my mother weighed a lot. She was about 300 pounds. And I remember when I was a child, she really was dismissed. Like people treated her a certain way. And after she got down to 130 pounds, she lost 170 pounds, not in a healthy way. And I remember how differently people treated her. And I never realized that till probably 20 years later. That was the pivotal moment that changed things for me because I saw the difference in how people responded to someone based on what they weighed. And yeah, I was in therapy one day. I was like, oh my, it was an epiphany. I was like, oh my God, that's what it was. But I remember, sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, it won't feel that way. I
Okay. But I remember I was waitressing one day and doing nutrition workshops on the side. And someone came in and his wife owned a salon and she kept talking to me every time she saw me about, you have to come in and do a workshop for my employees. You have to come in and do a workshop. And at this time, like I was being really far too strict with my nutrition. I was doing like competitions. I was on the full end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum. And I was like, why isn't she called in yet? I don't understand. Like, why haven't I gone into the workshop yet? I'm happy to schedule it. And he said, can I be honest? I was like, yeah. He said, they feel uncomfortable having you do it. And I said, why? I was like, I don't understand. And he said, because they feel like the way that you live is unattainable, so they're intimidated by it. And I remember being hurt, but also reflecting and going, oh my God, they don't understand because I tried to put such a perfect front onto the world, like, oh, I have this all figured out. I do this, I do this, I do this. And I did do all those things. But I was a freaking mess inside. Inside, I did all those things because I felt like if I didn't have absolute control of all those things, then what was I? If I don't have control and everyone thinks I have this all figured out, why are they going to love me? Because this is who I'm supposed to be. So how am I going to be worthy of love if they realize I'm broken? And I went home and I thought about that. And I was like, and this is the scariest thing I ever did. I was like, these people need to see that I'm not perfect, that I'm just like them. They need to understand that I've gone home and eaten an entire bag of cookies and had to, this is going to be so long, had to pour dish soap over stuff and put it in the trash so I won't keep eating it. Like, they need to know that I do all the messed up stuff they do. Because if I just go in and I'm like, well, you need to eat this and you need to eat this and you better exercise 5 days a week. And if you do this, everything's going to be great. Because that is a bunch of BS. And that was the day that I realized I was like, moving forward, I need to start sharing all of myself with the world.
Wow. A lot of things that I want to pick on and travel through. But I think the thing that like really struck me is the mask, right? So in COVID, I actually had a student say to me, Ms. Connell, we've been wearing masks our whole lives. And that has really struck me in so many ways, and how often we are not showing up as our true selves. And when we do, when we finally find our true selves, it's like relieving, it's freeing. And it sounds like, it's so hard when somebody calls us out for wearing our mask, or it's so hard to realize that we aren't who we say we are. But when you get there, it's like, yeah, that one day, right? Tell me about that one day.
Well, it's one day that started something that then I started seeing in other people. The people that I put on pedestals, I started seeing their flaws. And not flaws, the beauty in their flaws. And how their flaws, like the things that they felt made them broken, actually made me feel more comfortable in being broken. One of my best friends first off, I have to say, what a beautiful realization for a child to have. The mask, that's a beautiful realization. And
I know. And it really like, boom, like you landed in my lap. I was like, you just changed amazing.
Yeah. And I can say during COVID, that's probably the first time in my life I felt like I wasn't wearing a mask. It was around then that I just started being comfortable with myself because no one was watching. No one was watching me anymore. And really, no one was watching me before. It was just my own delusional head that felt like if I mess up, everyone's going to care. No one cared. Well, I cared. But I remember seeing one of my friends. She was like this little Barbie doll figure. And I always thought she was the coolest, funniest, everything about her. And I remember her one day coming to me. I'm like, oh, she must do everything perfect. And she was talking. We're in the gym and she's like, he needs to hide the Oreo. She goes, I ate a whole sleeve last night. And she's like, and I just keep doing that. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with me. And I remember looking at her and being like, oh, she does this too? And I loved her more for it. I loved her more for the fact that she openly said that and trusted in me enough to realize she was safe to do so. And I think that was the pivotal moment for me, because I'm like, this person that I love, admire, I think she's beautiful. I think she's so much more because of the fact that she has this thing that she was willing to share and own and be okay with. And I started little by little being a little bit more okay with what I thought was broken about me. So for me, during that time, it was the first time in my life, because my business is called Thrive, because at around 2021, so in 2020, the whole world shut down. First time I've ever stopped. I've never let myself stop long enough because I felt like if I was always moving, I didn't have time to break apart. So I could go to the gym and distract myself. I could go running and distract myself. I could keep myself busy. And as soon as I got home, I was like, okay, now you can break. But then I had to get up the next morning and go back out and pretend like I was okay. And it was interesting because a part of me was okay, but there was a part of me that never believed that was true. Who do you think you are to be? Who people think you are? Like, these people believe this. Like my friend Heather, she always saw this in me. And I'm like, why does someone so wonderful love me so much?
Yes.
I don't understand. I don't see it. What if she sees the parts of me that I don't like and then she's going to stop loving me?
Oh my gosh.
And it was my greatest fear.
That is power.
Yeah, it was terrifying. That's how I felt about every person in my life that loved me. I couldn't have relationships. I couldn't, because I was never full. I was married. I was never fully in. Because I felt if certain parts of me were ever seen, and it wasn't that I was hiding them actively. It's just that I didn't even know who I was enough to show them. I didn't know who I was outside of the story that I had created for myself to survive. And so I lived until 2020 in survival mode, and I didn't even recognize that's what was happening. And this is through going through college, having children, like doing a life that's successful to everybody from the outside. And honestly, to myself, I'm certain, but I didn't feel like it was enough. And at that time, I was able to shut down. And for 2 weeks, I did nothing. For 2 weeks, like I would go for walks. I built a gym in my house, realized that the gym was no longer something to punish myself. It was actually like, oh, I don't have to do this. And now I'm actually fighting to do it and put it in my home. So now I realize the value it genuinely has. And I didn't have to eat a certain way so that people wouldn't see that I was imperfect. No one was watching me. So everything I was doing at that time was based on who I really was. So it was the first time in my life I was realizing, like, okay, I'm all alone. Who do I want to be? What do I want to do today? How do I want to feel? Do I want to write? Do I want to read? What do I want to do? And I started working very hard on listening to things to promote me, who I was, because I was always the fake it. I don't like the fake it till you make it. No. Because someone said that to me once and they're like, so were you just, I was like, no, I said that was always who I knew was inside of me. But this other bigger piece that I was defining myself by was squishing it down. And I just didn't know how to fight my way through that. And then I one day heard something on a podcast and I forget who said it. And she said, the least interesting thing about you is the way that you look. And I started crying. Because then I turned it off and paused it and I started thinking and I was like, wow, every person around me, there's not one person I love because of they look a certain way. But yet I judge myself based on that. And I'm certain no one else gives a crap like what I look like. And I embraced that to such a level that it just became how I lived and how I started moving forward. And I'm like, Naomi, you're allowed to have an off day and that doesn't define you. You're allowed to have a day where you shut down, you don't talk to people, you don't be all sunshiny and all of these things. You're not there just to give something to people so that they still love you. Like, you could just be who you are. And that realization changed my life. And I didn't even do it on purpose, but it just happened. Honestly, that's why I did nutrition, is for so many years, I know that people feel alone and people feel so broken based on how they look. And I know because I was there. And it didn't matter if I was 120 pounds or 210 pounds. Both ways I felt broken. It was just that at 120 pounds, I could hide it because I felt as though people could see it based on how I looked on the outside. And what I realized now, it's about how I feel. And that's all people want. People just want to feel good. and they don't know how to get there.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of power in all the things that you shared. I think so many of us view going to the gym as a way to punish ourselves for doing something that we feel shame about, rather than seeing the gym as a place to build, right? It's literally a place to build strength, right? But we see it as a place of punishment. And I also was really moved by the statement you said that you weren't fully in with the people who loved you. And I just want to take a minute and reflect on that, because how often are we holding parts of us back? Not hiding, not intentional, but because we don't think they're good enough to share. And yet that's what puts the mask on. That's what causes us to hide. And it's not an act of hiding. It's an act of, I can't be good enough.
Self-protection. It is. It's like the invisible cape. It's like, okay, if nobody sees this part of me, I'm still going to be safe. But once they see this, I risk that safety going away.
Right. And it feels like losing everything.
Oh, it does. And you know what? I can honestly say I've been in one circumstance where I showed everything and the individual was not worth the vulnerability. And I remember that being like, oh my God. And I almost crawled back into my hole. And instead, I let it. Have you ever read Brene Brown? Okay. Did you ever read? So she had a line that stuck with me, and she said, vulnerability is so powerful, and the gift of our vulnerability to others allows them the same. She said, but people have to earn that vulnerability. We don't just give it away. We have to choose who's worthy of our vulnerability, not just spilling it around all over the place. And that was very powerful, because you go from one extreme to the other. Okay, I'm going to hide everything, to, okay, I should probably share. But then it's, okay, where's my middle ground where I'm kind of like, okay, is this a safe space?
Yeah. And also, at any point, learning what a safe space is requires you to be vulnerable and test it out. Like, you're not going to know that person wasn't worthy of your vulnerability unless you're vulnerable with them. And then it's clear it was or wasn't worthy. And now you've got to decide, how do I proceed? That wasn't a safe place.
Right. The amazing thing is I learned from that.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the moments where I realized I can do everything from that space, the space that I think vulnerability is an act of love. And that's what we all are at the foundation. I believe that at the foundation of our being, we are love. So whether I choose to be vulnerable with someone and it isn't safe, or I choose not to be, I think some people, I've learned to say, okay, it's okay, that person isn't for me, and that's all right, and I wish them all the love in the world. It just doesn't belong in my space.
Right. And it's not my safe place. Maybe it's somebody else's.
Yeah.
Right.
That's okay. And that leaves my space open and theirs to find what they need and what they're looking for elsewhere. To help them to expand, allowing me also that same opportunity, because otherwise we're taking up space in our body with things that is one of the biggest things I've learned is just to leave my space open, fill it all with love and light and all the beautiful things that meditation brings us.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I always picture, but then to leave the rest of the space open and not allow things to linger that are taking away.
Mic drop.
It's one of those places that sometimes I lose, but then I have to find my way back. That's when I meditate. I'm like, okay, I need to find my way back, because it's a feeling. It's a feeling of, okay, I'm here.
Almost feels like a close, right? Like, instead of being open, you now know what the difference of being open and what being closed feels like.
Yeah.
And sometimes we default back to what felt safe at one point, because that's what our minds and our bodies believe, but we have to override that narrative in our heads.
It's beautiful when we get to the space where it happens less and less often. I remember there was a day I was standing in my restaurant, and I'd probably been here. So I always say, and I never want to offend anyone with this, but I feel like the whole world shut down to get me off my ass and moving forward into what I didn't feel I was worthy of or capable of, because I never would have moved. It was like it shut down and said, now move. and left me no option but to do so. And okay, you no longer have time to sit back and survive. It's time for you to thrive, grow into who you're supposed to be. And I remember there was a day when I was in here and I was having a conversation with someone and they were talking to me. And I, like, in my head, something they were saying, and I don't remember the conversation itself, but most conversations I have here tend to be pretty impactful. They're never like passive conversations, which I love. And I suddenly felt very happy inside. And I realized in that moment, oh my God, I'm present. There's no other conversation I'm having with myself in my head of, oh my God, I wonder if they think I look okay. I wonder if they think I'm doing a good job. I hope I didn't say anything wrong. Like all of these things that have always been there, all these voices. And I realized in that moment it was gone. And now it's 5% of the time that ever comes back, which is beautiful because it's presence. That is the freedom.
It is. I was working on practicing my gratitudes, right? So I have always been like, I am a thankful person. I am a grateful, but I never had a practice. And so I started every night before I went to bed, I started to list the 5 things I was grateful for that day. And what came from that was silence in my head. And I did not know that I could turn that voice off.
Yeah.
And that's what you just said. That presence is wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Because when we reflect on gratitude, it's wow. And I don't know if this ever happens to you. Sometimes I'll make myself, like if I'm having a bad day and I'm just like, wow, everything sucks. I'm like, Naomi, gratitude. And it'll be as simple. Sometimes it's hard. It's like, I have a car. I have friends. I have shoes on my feet. Like I have to start out with the basics.
Yes.
But then do you ever find that you're suddenly naming like 15 things and you're like winding all this out because of this one problem?
Yes. Well, and what you look for, you find, right? And so it came up in my notes that you had said something that when you look for something, you find it. And I don't remember what it was specifically that you said, but it just came up again for me that when you seek for something, you find it. It may not look the way you thought it was going to look, but it definitely appears for you. But we don't have the time and space sometimes to remember that we have to look for it.
It's hard. I was just having a conversation this morning about this, and we were talking about just basically, they said they were reading a book by Joe Dispenza. And he goes, I've never thought about the statement mind over matter. And he said, and I started thinking about it because he was asking me about a procedure I have coming up. And he's like, are you nervous? I was like, no, I'm so excited. I'm like, I'm seeing the best possible outcome and it's going to be glorious. And he's like, that is what mind over matter is. You're choosing to focus on the thoughts and what the best possibility is over the situation. And the beautiful thing about that is we can always do that. There's so many people, and this is no judgment,
No.
but they focus on what's the worst outcome so that I can be prepared. I'm like, what if you focus on the best outcome so that no matter what happens, like there's going to be a bend in the road, it's probably going to suck a little bit. But if you have that in sight, you're going to be like, okay, well, how do I continue to get there and jump over this little hill?
Yeah.
And I just think those reframes are so important. And it's something I have to do, and it drives my fiance crazy. He's like, it's not always, and I'm like, it is though. It's always like that. It's always a good outcome if you see it that way.
Yes. That's incredible. I want to know what the advice that you would give to Naomi if she was a teenager today. Now that you've taken your journey through this experience, you've seen the darkness, you've seen the light, you've seen the challenges, you know that you persevered, you were resilient. What is the advice you would give to that Naomi if she was a teenager today?
I would try and help her to see herself through my eyes. I think that the greatest gift we can give anyone is to see them, speak to them through our eyes so that they understand themselves and can see themselves clearly and understand that they're so worthy of love. Because I think that we can see beauty in everyone else, like no matter what, and just beauty in who they are and what they are. And we don't see that in ourselves. And I don't understand why, because we can look at everyone and it's like, oh my God, they're so beautiful because they do this and this is who they are and look how resilient. But yet we're like, oh my God, like, why did I go through that? And why did I? And I did an activity once in a therapy. And I was talking about how I was like, if anyone ever knows about my childhood, like all the drugs I did and all the choices I made to survive, all these things, they're not going to like me. Like, they're going to think I'm like horrible, which I didn't do anything horrible. So there's no reason to think that. But at that time, I felt that way. Yeah. And she said, can you close your eyes for a minute? She said, can you see that little girl? She said, see yourself as, I mean, there were things from 3 to 13 that I could have been in any of those stages to see her. And she said, I want you to walk up to her and I want you to grab her hands and I want you to look at her. She goes, are you judging anything about this little girl? And I was like, no. And she said, can you see that she actually got through all those things and she's here today? Like, you need to applaud her. And I remember just sitting there, tears running down my face. And I thought about that for weeks.
Yeah.
And I was able to forgive myself for something I had never done, but had judged myself for 30 years for. And I was able to start thinking like, okay, you survived something that most people would not. And so just to tell her, like, you will survive everything. You just have to keep loving yourself.
Wow. As you started to tell that story, I started to think about my teenager and my young girl. And I did the same thing. Would I judge her the way she judged herself? No way.
Yeah.
No way. I appreciate that advice so much because I think there are so many of us that carry out those judgments and carry them forever and ever without giving them the space to say, go for 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Would you judge that person the way that she's judging herself? No way. Wow. That is impressive advice. I love it.
Thank you. Can I ask you one question?
Of course.
Have you ever seen the Dove commercial?
Absolutely.
The Dove commercial where they have a sketch artist. So there's a Dove commercial. I'm going to send it to you. I'll share it today too. It's so impactful. I've watched it like 50 times, but there's a Dove commercial they did probably 12 years ago. And if you punch in Dove sketch artist commercial, and basically there's a sketch artist in a room and he's sitting behind a curtain and there's all these women in another room and he has one person come in at a time and describe another person that was in the room and he sketches them. And then he has that same woman come in and describe herself. And so they go into this gallery after. So there's the picture of the woman that was described from someone else's eyes. And there's the picture that she described herself. And they're completely opposite. Like this one has these beautiful face structure and this lace-on neck. And this one's like this chubby round face with small
Wow.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful. I showed it to my daughter. It's just so powerful.
That's amazing. Well, before I let you go, tell my listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So there's a few places. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm under Thrive on Facebook and then Naomi Andrick. And then on Instagram, I am Thrive Meals 1, and then I am Naomi Fit to Live. My nutrition business was called Fit to Live Nutrition, so that's what it stayed.
Okay.
And then our location is in Rawlinsford if anyone wanted to ever reach out to me about how I help people still with nutrition, with workouts, and I also do the meal delivery service.
Yeah, that's so cool. The meal delivery service, I love it. Any favorite thing ever.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your vulnerability. And I hope that this reaches the right audience. I'm really excited for it.
I know. I'm excited.
Are you ready to help the young people in your life unlock their inner strength and step confidently into leadership? The new workbook from Peers Not Fears, Your Voice Matters, Uncovering Your Unique Leadership. It's designed to help teens see the leader in themselves, step by step. It's not just a workbook. It's the first step towards a ripple effect that could change lives. Let's turn today's teens into tomorrow's titans. Thank you for tuning in to
to this episode of Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit from this conversation. Together, we can support our teens in building healthy, positive relationships and become leaders of tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Lorraine Connell, and this is Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans.